Let's take a few minutes to discuss ethics and how ethics impacts your professional practice. Society trusts in you to know your practice, know its practical limits, and work to make sure that the services you perform meet or exceed the profession's best practices. This is a legal and ethical responsibility. Everything you do requires you to understand the needs of your employers or clients. You listen, observe, gather data, and ask questions. You think about what you've learned, and you come to conclusions. You make recommendations, offer advice, or take action within the scope of your job and responsibilities. Sometimes you take action outside of that scope, going above and beyond the call of those duties. You do this because you are a professional. You would not even think of making those conclusions or taking those actions if they violently conflicted with what known technical standards or recognized best technical practices said was required. You would not knowingly recommend or act to violate the law. Your professional ethics are no different. To be a professional means that society has placed great trust and confidence in you because you have been willing to take on the responsibility to get things done right. They are a set of standards that are both constraints and freedoms which you use to inform, shape, and then test your conclusions and decisions with before you act. As a professional in any profession, you learned what that profession requires of you through education, training, and on-the-job experience. You learned from teachers, mentors, trainers, and the people working alongside of you. They shared their hard-earned insight and knowledge with you as their part of promoting the profession that you had in common. In doing so, they strengthened the practice of the ethics of the profession and the practice of its technical disciplines. ISC Squared provides us a code of ethics, and to be an SSCP, you agree to abide by it. It starts with a preamble, which states, "The safety and welfare of society and the common good, duty to our principals and to each other, requires that we adhere and be seen to adhere to the highest ethical standards of behavior." Strict adherence to this code is a condition of certification. Let's operationalize that preamble by taking it apart, step by step, and see what it really asks of us. Step 1, safety and welfare of society. Allowing information systems to come to harm because of the failure of their security systems or controls can lead to damage to property, injury, or death of people who were depending upon those systems operating correctly. Step 2 is the common good. All of us benefit when our critical infrastructures provide common services that we all depend upon and work correctly and reliably. Step 3, duty to our principals. Our duties to those we regard as leaders, rulers, or our supervisors in any capacity. Step 4, our duty to each other, to our fellow SSCPs, others in our profession, and to others in our neighborhood and society at large. Step 5, adhere and be seen to adhere. Behave correctly and set the example for others to follow. Be visible in performing your job ethically in adherence with this code so that others can have confidence in us as a profession and learn from our example. The code is equally short, containing just 4 canons of principles to abide by. 1, protect society, the common good, necessary public trust and confidence, and the infrastructure. 2, act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally. 3, provide diligent and competent service to principals. And 4, advance and protect the profession. The canons do more than restate the preamble's key points. They show us how to adhere to the preamble. We must take action to protect what we value. That action should be done with honor, honesty, and with justice as our guide. Due care and due diligence are what we owe to those we work for, including the customers of the businesses that employ us. The final canon talks to our continued responsibility to grow as a professional. We are on a never-ending journey of learning and discovery. Each day brings an opportunity to make the profession of information security stronger and more effective. SSCPs are members of a worldwide community of practice, the informal grouping of people concerned with the safety, security, and reliability of information systems and the information infrastructures of our modern world. Most businesses and nonprofits or other types of organizations have a code of ethics that they use to shape their policies, guide them in making decisions, setting goals, and taking actions. They also use these codes of ethics to guide the efforts of their employees, team members, and associates. In many cases, these codes can be the basis of decisions to admonish, discipline, or to terminate their relationship with an employee. In most cases, organizational codes of ethics are also extended to the partners, customers, or clients that the organization chooses to do business with. Sometimes, these codes of ethics are written down and established as policy directives upon all who work there. Sometimes, they are implicitly or tacitly understood as part of the organizational culture, or shaped and driven by influential personalities in the organization. But just because they aren't written down, that doesn't mean that an ethical code or framework for that organization doesn't exist. Fundamentally, these codes of ethics have the capacity to balance the conflicting needs of law and regulation with the bottom line pressure to survive and flourish as an organization. This is the real purpose of an organizational ethical code. Unfortunately, some organizations let the balance go too far towards the bottom line set of values and take shortcuts. They compromise their ethics, legal or regulatory responsibilities, and end up applying their codes of ethics loosely, if at all. As a case in point, consider that risk management must include the dilemma that sometimes there are more laws and regulations than any business can possibly afford to comply with, and they all conflict with each other in some way, shape, or form. It's actually quite easy to incorporate professional and personal ethics along with the organization's own code of ethics into every decision process you use. For example, focus your attention on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that a situation or problem presents. Being true to one's ethics should be a strength in such a context, and if it starts to be seen as a weakness or a threat, that's a danger signal about that situation or context that you must address or take to management and leadership for them to own. As the on-scene information security professional, you'll be the one who most likely has the first clear opportunity to look at an IT security posture, policy, control, or action and challenge any aspects of it that you think might conflict with the organization's code of ethics, the ISC Squared Code of Ethics, or your own personal and professional ethics. As members of ISC Squared, security professionals willingly and knowingly agree to fulfill two important duties defined in many nations' legal systems and their society's ethical systems. The first important duty is due care. Due care requires that the professional use their knowledge and experience to identify all steps necessary to fully, correctly, and completely address the requirements of their clients or the organizations and people that they support, within the requirements of both law and contracts. The second important duty is due diligence. Due diligence requires that the professional perform all tasks necessary to monitor or oversee the performance of activities that fall within their purview, to assure that they are being performed correctly, producing the required outcomes, and that those outcomes are still appropriate given any changes in circumstances. Due care can often be thought of as doing the right thing, while due diligence can be seen as following through on what's being done.